This episode includes personal discussion of childhood sexual abuse, trauma memory recall, panic responses, dissociation, and suicidal ideation. Please listen with care and feel free to pause, skip, or return when you feel supported and resourced. You are always welcome to take what resonates and leave the rest. Grounding and reflective practices are included throughout the episode. This podcast features intuitive, psychic, and spiritual impressions provided for entertainment and personal development purposes. Nothing in this episode should be considered medical, psychological, legal, or financial advice. The host is not a licensed professional. All guests participate voluntarily and understand that personal stories or emotions may naturally arise. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Sael Podcast. My name is Farah. I'm a psychic medium and channel, and in this podcast, I channel healing energy and guide guests on journeys that serve their highest good. With every episode, we embark on a new teaching, new realizations, new ideas, inspiration for moving forward. I invite you to remember to guide your own being from within with every step you take, including while listening to each podcast episode. For every human being is unique and individual, and teachings may arise that may or may not apply to all beings, and they may not apply to the guests themselves in every moment of their lives, except for the moment in which it is shared. So I invite you to join and to listen with discernment, guided with your own inner knowing, to take on what resonates and discard the rest. Today on this solo episode, I am inviting you to open your heart and open to clear the space beyond you so that you can receive and experience play with what reveals and what unfolds, and so that you can take from it what could be of healing for your growth path and experience as a witness if nothing resonates, and exit and move on to the next thing. So I invite you to close your eyes with me and take 5 deep breaths. So we're going to start with inhale, exhale, inhale, and deep exhale. Another inhale, and a deep exhale. One more inhale, and a deep exhale, and one last inhale, and one last exhale. Give it your all. And now I need you to open your eyes and look in the space around you. What this allows us to do is to center and orient ourselves in our current space before we embark on an energetic clearing process. I want you to imagine that roots grow through your sacral bones or sacrum, and whether you're standing up or sitting down like I am right now, imagine those roots growing through your legs and down to your feet and penetrating the walls, going through the building in which you're currently sitting, and down through the ground, through the first layer of the earth, and through the second, third, fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, and beyond, penetrating, traveling these roots, growing deeper and further into the earth, and deeper and further, all the way through the core of this beautiful planet on which we walk. And as you settle yourself in your seat with those roots deeply and steadily ingrained with the earth, through all of its layers, multitude of layers, I want you to open your eyes again and stretch your neck so you can lift your head up and bring it down, side, maybe a circle, stretch it out, get all those little kinks and little tensions and compressions out of it, maybe shake it out a little bit, and we're ready. We're ready. I don't know if this was for you or if this was for me before I embark on telling a story that shaped me and brought me to began on this path of healing myself, guiding others on their own healing journeys. I was born and raised in Damascus, Syria, and I grew up in a family with wonderful, highly educated parents. They were both doctors, which in Syria was one of the most reputable, respectable professions you can have. And they provided me with everything they could that was available, and it wasn't perfect. I assumed it was, based on my own inability to see the truth that I wasn't yet capable of holding at the time. And so fast forward to 2 years ago, in January of 2024, I sat in meditation one morning and prompted by different types of hypnotherapy and subconscious opening through breath work, through my own psychic clearing and psychic awakening and opening up my channels. I remembered I had memories flood back of times when I was sexually assaulted and violated by family member, my father. And I didn't remember everything at the time, but my body did. I was experiencing nausea, I was throwing up, I was fully in panic mode, and very quickly I became dissociated and detached from myself. And luckily, for the 5 to 3 years before that, I had embarked on a healing journey because I was motivated to become more, to evolve, to grow. I always sought to create things, to build things that would impact people on massive scale. And from a very young age, I do remember going to bed and praying to God, help me do something amazing for the world. So those dreams manifested in my early career, building businesses that I wanted to scale to $1 million exits. With my first venture, hell, I did quickly see a return on investment. I'd bootstrapped to a profitable launch, closing the biggest client in the industry that I could for the service that I was offering. And I did it with a small team, with my savings from my first job, and the grit, the ambition that I had. And it didn't fit. Something didn't fully align. And so within a week of experiencing this high, this success, of making 5 figures in a day and more than I had saved from working at my first full-time job to allow me to take that leap and build that business full-time, I went on a trip to Greece with a few of my startup founder friends. And we had spent a month there where I began to slowly settle. And in that month, ayahuasca had come across my radar. And for some reason, it was a full body call, an invitation. From that 1 month retreat in Greece, I went towards where the retreat was being hosted. And I was on the wait list until 2 days before, but I knew I was going and I knew a spot would open up for me. So instead of pursuing my different travel plans at the time, I followed, even though in the moment nothing made sense. And I found myself in this village with wonderful souls whom I had connected with briefly online. Even though I was very initially uncomfortable with the idea of surrendering my whole self to something that I didn't really do much research on, that I wasn't comfortable with, something in my being just knew this was right. This was for me, and I need to do this. I get to do this right now. And I'm honored and grateful for that privilege and the chance to have worked with that plant medicine. The retreat was beautiful, guided by a shaman, and multiple trained facilitators and a translator. The shaman is Peruvian. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't grow up in a spiritual household. I was born in a Christian family after we moved to the United States from Syria, given the war. My family became slightly more religious. I think I also became slightly more religious and close to the heart of the Orthodox Christian teachings. I always found myself drawn to deepening my own connection to a divine source, to God, to life, because life is sacred and our being here is a gift. And it took some challenges for me to come to that realization that I continue to have to wake myself up to almost daily. So when I entered the retreat, I had written down in my intake form that my intention was to feel safe in my body. I had noticed that compared to my friends, I was more weary, more anxious, and had experienced panic attacks traveling alone for sometimes reasonable factors and sometimes illogical factors. And I was aware that my response was beyond my mental control, that my body had entered a state that I couldn't just logically walk myself out of. I needed extra support and I needed to know the source. I always found it essential to go to the root cause because knowledge of how one thing originates is the prescription of the medicine that will get you out of that state. At least that has been my own intention for resolving conflict at the root. During the retreat, I had certain experiences and visions and realizations that at the moment didn't fully reveal themselves, most likely because I wasn't in a place and time where I could really receive that information. I was scheduled to return to New York, where I had been building my business, the startup Okel, and instead of going back in January and staying there, I decided to move abroad. And at the time, I didn't know where and how. I decided to travel around Europe and explore where would be an interesting home base for myself. So I went to London and to Berlin and Florence and Belfast and Köln and gosh, I don't know. I didn't count at the time, but I was in a total of 21 cities in 8 months. And I went back to the US and I had a very big client that wanted to work again. And it would be the same 5-figure service that I had done the year before. I sent an email that summer saying, I am so sorry, but I will not be able to provide the service. Okel was really bringing people together through the art of sharing meals and supporting local restaurants all at the same time. And I had so much passion when I did this, and I loved doing it. And I learned from closing Okel that sometimes your passion doesn't end, it's just redirected. And what I had unfolded post the plant medicine retreat and those, let's say, 7 months traveling was my own spiritual awakening and different gifts coming to life. And in those months, I started to experience visions in conversations with friends or loved ones, and I would see an image of them as a child at a certain age within a specific context where a certain wound had developed. And I would realize when I would feel comfortable to bring it up and share that those visions actually correlated directly with the challenge that they had been sharing in the discussion when I would see the vision. And so over time, I initially was a bit unsettled. I think I questioned, why am I seeing this? What's the point? Why do I have this gift? I don't really want this. I just want to be normal. What is this about? I remember meeting up with a friend in New York, building in tech and the startup ecosystem. And I remember telling her, Dahlia, I'm having these experiences and I don't know why. And I don't know what to do with it. And it's a bit weird. I just don't know what to do with it. And she said, why don't you just ask people who do this for a living? And for context, I didn't grow up with the idea of psychics or mediums or channels, any sort of career that had a spiritual imprint that was part of it was strictly and very uniquely isolated to the Orthodox Church, where priests could offer the word of God and blessings through the sacred sacraments. This is what I had grown up with. This is what my family had witnessed. And this is what I was just believing was the only thing allowed and true and good and holy. Everything else was not of God, was not holy, and probably was doing harm. This was one of the factors why I was in resistance for a long time. I couldn't be allowed to do this. I might be harming people. God, am I allowed to do this? And I would come back to this idea, would God open something in you if it wasn't for the benefit of those around you? Now, would God open up what's in you, whether that's a desire, a seed, a passion, if it didn't have a place of impact for people, and maybe even one person next to you and for you? So after that conversation with my friend Delia, I decided I should probably ask some people. So I had joined a spiritual community, but to me, spiritual community just meant that they're interested in yoga and meditation. And I posted in the group chat, hi, I'm looking to explore my intuitive gifts. I didn't even have words to describe what I was going through. So I just said, I'm exploring. Would anybody know someone that I should connect with who might do this for a living? And a few people reached out and I ended up connecting within the same week with one psychic medium in Italy and one Akashic Records reader. And when I had connected with a psychic medium in Italy, very after we had joined our Zoom call, and I remember how I was sitting in the back of Bluestone Lane Collective Cafe in the West Village. They have like a back room and nobody was there. So it was just me taking this Zoom call. And I could see someone behind her. And I had never experienced anything like that where I could like truly see, but not with my eyes. And I just knew this was not, a spirit and energy that was in this like 3 world. It was a new one that I hadn't encountered before. And I showed up on the call and I told her like, I'm experiencing these visions. Why do I sometimes know, or why do I have a feeling? What is this about? And like, what's the point? Why can I see that? And why can I see someone behind you right now? And she very calmly said, that's my grandmother and I can't see her, but other people can. And the more that I described her, the more things came together, because what I have learned eventually is that when spirits visit from the different realm, and it's typically late loved ones who are there to support you and guide you, they will show up with distinct factors to let you know, almost like a confirmation. They want to show you, yes, that's me and I am here. She guided me through the process of mediating and sharing what was flowing. And I was crying. I was terrified, literally tears flooding my eyes. And then she ended with, welcome on the path, sister. And to this day, I didn't really allow myself to fully feel welcome on the path, grappling between the 2 worlds that I had been comfortable with, the worlds of healing and spiritual enlightenment and awakening, and the world of tech and entrepreneurship and building and selling and creative product creation and design. I had not really felt fully aligned with one, but have not yet allowed myself to only go in one and only that until this moment and until this season and this new chapter of my life, where I'm openly sharing and openly giving of the gifts that flow through me, because this is what I came here to offer. This is what I came here to deliver. The voice that I channel is not of mine, but of 2 Palladian energies that I came here through. And as I hear that, I know it sounds insanely out of reach for most people, but the how doesn't really matter. The outcome, the result, is the goal here. What's the point? What's the goal? Why are we doing this? Why do we channel? And why are they speaking through me? And why am I choosing to allow it right now? And this makes me go back to the last 2 years of my life. After I started to work with my intuitive gifts, and I had spoken with the Akashic Records reader in addition to the psychic medium, and both of them telling me, welcome on the path, sister, you're more ready than you think you are, I had no idea what that meant. I was genuinely confused and thought, yeah, but where's the manual? Where's the instructions manual? Who has knowledge about this? How do I trust that their knowledge is real, is good, is whole, is sacred, is of light and of love? And all of my own insecurities and trust issues came up, because when you're working with this realm, it's not something you can see or you control. It's something you navigate and that you dance with, because it guides you and you're guided by it, and you help other people as they find their own guidance. And so it's not me that speaks when I speak in the sessions, but it's the voice that I channel that allows me to heal. It's not me. And so I always love when I see reminders that you are not the healer and you are not the guru, because none of us are. None of us are. We're like the window. You can close it and open it whenever you want. And we are like the window. You can open and close the window that is you to this spiritual realm whenever you want. You get to choose. You're allowed to choose. We want you to choose. And as I guide people in sessions, I learn from the teachings, which is such a gift for me as well, as I embark on my own human evolution. And so I honor the spirits that I channel, the voice, the words, the vibrations, and the audience, the clients, the collaborators, the supporters, the anchors, the context in which it all encompasses, the light. I left New York and I booked a one-way ticket to Berlin. I booked a 3-week sublet that I viewed at the airport, and I was guided. I couldn't tell you why I had to go to Berlin first. I had navigated some career search in London. I had been familiar with the UK, so I always assumed that London would be the place in Europe that would hold me had I ever pursued the relocation to Europe. But when I visited some friends in Berlin on my travel search adventure, I really appreciated the way people were living, the radical authenticity of expression, and the amount of radical spiritual awakening that I had witnessed during a breathwork class that I had attended while visiting. And ironically, I ended up moving a 10-minute walk from that location and would frequent that breathwork class, where I found so much of my own trauma coming up for the 5 months after I moved. When I got to Berlin, I could not get a job, but I kept getting nudged back into the entrepreneurship route, which was so confusing to me because I really didn't want to build a business. And I had found myself in these Web3 events where I started to think and ideate. I was admitted into this 4-month blockchain and AI course. And through that, I was so inspired to create things that allowed people to really be financially sovereign. And so in that process of ideation, this program called Antler came up on my radar, and one of my neighbors would invite me to apply multiple times until I finally said, okay, I'll apply. I went through the application, and to my surprise, I was actually admitted. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use this opportunity as a means of creating connections, given I had just moved to Berlin and I don't know that many people in this industry. I built these beautiful connections with amazing people. And halfway through the program, we had visitors from the Dutch office come to Berlin. And one of them had been part of a community that both of us are part of for a global founders called the Sigma Squared Society. So we linked up and we started ideating on concepts for a wellness platform that is specifically tailored to supporting people from trauma recovery. In that process, I visited the Amsterdam location with her, decided to complete the program in the Amsterdam office, and found myself finding a new opening, a new road clear. And I decided I would actually settle in Amsterdam. So I went back to Berlin and brought my stuff here. And within a week of settling in Amsterdam, my first sublet, with no clear path of how I would get a new visa here, come to settle, get a job, I was still waiting for a visa appointment in Berlin, which allowed me to stay and reside legally in Europe, but I didn't have a proper European visa. And suddenly, midway through, I'm deciding I should move to Amsterdam. I'm so grateful I listened to that because a week later, I met my partner and we've been together for almost 2 years now. Now I fully reside in the Netherlands and I truly love it. I truly love it. I'm so honored. It has been such a hard last few years to get here, and I skipped the bad part until now. But it all had to happen the way it exactly unfolded because there was no other way I would surrender to any invitation to move to the Netherlands. I didn't even know it was possible to live here without knowing Dutch fluently immediately, or to work even in an industry that I was more familiar with, that was an easier path for me to center myself before I embark on this totally new adventure with Sael. There's no way I would have known or planned for that. And this is why surrender is the remedy for when we are in resistance of reality because of our inclination to control the outcome, so that we protect ourselves from experiencing the same pain we witnessed in others or that we had felt ourselves. And I saw my parents struggle through the experience of immigrating from Syria to the United States, and I didn't really want to go through that. I acknowledged that part of me refused to let go of all of the things and the glory that I had built up for myself in those early career years and college in the United States. Berlin was home for me for a beautiful 7 months, 8 months, even though I think within 2 months of being there, I was thinking to myself, I think I'm going to be here for the next 8 years of my life. And I giggle at the thought of that, but I did feel at home. I felt very settled and very held. And I think the fact that I was surrounded by the right people in the right place in the right moment really allowed me to open up for the first time in my life and to finally have those memories of the sexual abuse that I had encountered as a child multiple times in my childhood flood back in a moment on a Tuesday. And this was 2 weeks before I started my entrepreneurship in residency with Antler. And it was completely shocking that I had no option to return to the United States. I was completely frazzled and my nervous system in shatters, that I could not even walk beyond 30 minutes from my house because I felt unsafe. And this was coming from someone who had traveled all around the world on her own, even at a younger age, all across Asia as well, and Indonesia and Thailand and all parts of Europe. And suddenly I was scared to walk beyond 30 minutes from my house. So something was happening and I didn't know how to deal with it. In the months before that, I had been doing a lot of energy healing and hypnosis practices an intense breath work that is meant to clear the system and to drive out all of energetic blocks from the body. And I would have many, many moments repeating in those hypnosis sessions where my subconscious mind would prompt me to a certain age and then it would turn black. It was like, we go back to 8 years old or 13 years old and it just turns black. And I was getting irritated because I'm someone who's really actively, like, genuinely motivated with my own personal growth. And it bothered me that I knew something was there and I couldn't find what. And so finally, when I had spent 2 weeks during the winter break fully settled and secure in my apartment in Berlin, I felt really grounded and safe. And I think that's when the memories had room to come up. And I'm grateful I didn't go back to the US. 5 months later, I had met my partner, which is kind of crazy because I look back at those years as quote unquote the weakest years of my life, but it's the reason I'm the person I am now. It's the how I have become more sovereign, more secure, more open, and more awakened. Dare I say that? And it's not like a badge of honor, it's just a consequence of going through the muck. I am so grateful for Antler because it gave me a big distraction. And the distraction was almost like a crutch that I had to lean on. So it grounds me and gives me a purpose and a reason to continue to think beyond what I had just remembered. Otherwise, it would have swallowed me deeply. And I had moments when I was scared I would stay alive. I was so scared of the thoughts that were going through my head. Would I survive this? Is my life over now? Am I dead? I really had those thoughts because I had always feared sexual abuse and rape. I grew up in a society and culture where we were shown on TV images of women being killed or committing suicide after experiencing any form of sexual abuse. I even remember my mom we were watching an episode of a TV show, like one of the very old Syrian TV shows, and a woman had been sexually assaulted and decided to commit suicide after. And I remember being around middle school, probably after I had started to be sexually abused by my dad, and my mom said, I would do the same if I was her. I was mortified. I thought I would have to do the same. I thought I would have to end my life as well. And I just hear that and hold myself. I'm so grateful. I committed to holding my own inner child, that version of me, and the younger version of me, and the older version of me through it all, because deeply I have known there's more. You are not what happens to you. You are certainly not what you experience, and you are most certainly not the result of unconsciousness done with you, not even through you. You are not the victim of what happens, and you are not the object of it. You just happen to be there. I had to forgive myself for holding in the secret, the lie, that I had deeply internalized that it was my fault. That was deadly on its own. Because imagine what kind of situations and experiences you would walk into with that kind of belief system. If it's my fault, then I will continue to attract situations that hurt me and still make it my fault. And that did happen. I did find myself in a couple of jobs here in the Netherlands where I had some deeply unhelpful circumstances towards my healing. And it kept triggering back the same trauma response of, why is this happening to me? I'm not doing anything wrong. Why is it my fault? And in both circumstances, I saw both institutions or systems dissolve internally. And it felt like a confirmation. It wasn't just me. Yeah, I chose this to awaken through it, and I'm thankful for that. But I didn't have to take responsibility for the pain, the wrong that had been taking place for longer than I had joined. And that was a big pill to swallow. Trauma is an awakening. In my experience, the last 2 years have truly offered the grandest awakening of my life, because through the trauma recovery, I have had to put myself back into pieces. And in the process of doing so, it's almost like you're going through an entire body scan. And when you're going through that scan, you have attention and focus, and you're getting to pick and choose what to put back in. I am so honored for this process, because through it, I have become the woman I am now. And I will continue to unfold and evolve and grow with current weaknesses out of me. But I am grateful. I am so grateful for the trauma, because it resulted in my own awakening. It forced me to always look in. And through my own sensitivity to energy, I have been forced to work energetically on my own trauma healing. Through energy retrieval, through energy clearing, through alchemy, learning to witness and to allow. It has been far from perfect. There had been many, many days when I found myself on the floor crying for no reason, consciously, but my body was pushing to be seen, to be heard, to be known for the pain that it had encountered that just needed to be acknowledged. The moments when I couldn't experience sexual intimacy with my partner because I would go into freeze response, or my body would immediately bring all of the experiences up again that I would feel in my soul choking. The shame, the disgust, all of those experiences that were so horrible and horrific that forced me to ask, is this all that is? Like, is this really it? And when I started to ask the question, that's when I began to remember who I truly am at my core. And I want to acknowledge many of the resources that I have found to be instrumental in my healing. And the first one is the meditations that I religiously meditated to from Dr. Joe Dispenza for nearly 9 months straight, 1 hour a day, nonstop. And I had been gifted a Google Drive with these meditations from a friend I'd met online many years ago. When I found myself in desperation after Antler had completed and I was between Berlin and Amsterdam figuring out how to move, that's when I started to figure out energy healing. In those meditations, in that state of awareness that pulled me back from the trauma response and began to pull me back into my body, into myself. And in those states, I was able to also go to the root cause and untangle and choose for myself. In my own sovereignty, what would I choose? If I were to begin again, what would I choose? Where would I go? What would I do? Purely on the feeling of bliss and openness, I took a chance to stay in the Netherlands. And as I met my partner, I had a greater reason to stay. I applied for a job. I found a job. I had a visa. I transferred to a new job. It gave me a longer visa. And I'm so grateful. And now I'm even more grateful that I have disconnected from that industry to focus on something that is more real, more true, even though parts of myself are still witnessing the ego death, all the ways in which I have identified myself with the entrepreneur, the creative, the builder, the founder, the hustler, to now actually surrender and be okay with letting go of all these grandiose ideas that my ego found solace in, to hide all of the quote-unquote impurity, all the shame. But in the practices that I have found, I have been led back to my inner well of goodness, of light, of healing, a different source that has tremendously supported my own awakening and spiritual clearing has been breathwork. And I mentioned earlier in Berlin, I was doing really intense breathwork practices with beautiful practitioners. And I have found a different way of doing it in a more flowing and subtle method here in Amsterdam. And it continues to do more for me than, honestly, years of therapy. The breath is life, and I trust life. And so when we go in breathwork practices, we're allowing life to come into our vessel and do its thing. You never know what's going to come up for you in a breathwork practice. But I trust life to go exactly where it must so that I am less held by what isn't for me. Sovereign teaching is something that I have now committed to sharing, because in the practices that I have embarked upon that have led me to this very moment, I have learned that energetically, none of us is always truly and uniquely, authentically who we are. And yet we are the most powerful and the most magnetic and magnificent when we are only that. We unconsciously pick up imprints and flashes of energy from watching TV that puts our subconscious mind in a hypnotic state and suddenly takes upon an imprint that isn't who we are, that we project onto the world. And so we attract more of that. Sometimes it's witnessing family members go through experiences and grabbing onto that emotional response so tightly that we unconsciously internalize it. Same thing, it becomes a projection out in the world and we attract the same. In the work that I do, I hold a mirror. Because I'm an energy intuitive and I read energy, I work with energy, I can sense and feel what's coming up. And I guide you to find your own tool. So you cut the cords and you shine internally as a sovereign being. I'm aware this is going to be a lifetime process for all of us. But why wait? Why wait until it's too late to go back to the roots, to go back to the source? I do believe that the inner peace and fulfillment and joy and openness really and truly comes from being aligned from feeling one with life. That's alignment. Because naturally, organically, life positions and directs and orients us in a way that allows the greater puzzle to fit perfectly, so it has a beautiful, grand image. And until we are fully sovereign, we are not fitting in the puzzle as our own unique puzzle piece. And so there's massive tension and clunks in this puzzle piece where different pieces are pretending to be other pieces. And the puzzle really just wants you to be the piece that you are. It's the simplest, yet the most complicated thing. And it's because we are intrinsically motivated to belong, to reach, to run. It's how we've survived, but we are evolving past that stage. And now we belong from our center together in the collective, from our inner belonging to who we are. So I leave you with one thought to grapple with for the next week. Where are you on the path of sovereignty? Thank you for joining today. Thank you for listening. I'm so honored to be able to open up, share, and spread what flows. I'm truly honored and privileged to have this gift and to be able to openly and graciously share it and offer it. It's a gift for me, and so it is a gift for all of us. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing, for sharing, for engaging. I wish you well. And if you're interested in the path of trauma healing through energy work, I would love to learn and consider working together. I would love to see you. We are one, and you are never alone. Thank you for tuning in today. Until the next time, if you wish to participate as a guest on this podcast, you can submit an interest form below in the show notes. To learn more about Sael and the intuitive guidance and coaching, I invite you to join my Substack community where I share channeled reflections, insights, and more. Join me at withsael.com. That's WITHSAEL.com. With light and love and healing for all. Your host and Sael.